Hi, I'm TP McAtamney. I'm author of the book, My Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women. On today's topic, I want to talk about the aha moment, or the moment that you came to the undeniable conclusion you were with an abuser, a narcissist, a borderline, and you decided that the relationship was not going to go any further. Now, perhaps you have been discarded, and so that was thrust upon you, but there's always that thing after the discard where they try to hoover you back in later on, and you got to come to the point where you decided this is not going to ever go on again. And that's different for everybody, but generally you reach an aha moment with this person where it's just undeniable that there's no future with this person. As I spoke before, 20 years ago or so, I was a 911 dispatcher, and we used to receive calls from couples that were having domestic issues, and we'd send officers out. And in these calls, the officers would get out there and assess the situation. Many times it didn't result in an arrest, just one party had to leave the scene or something. In other situations, and generally with the men, at that time there was always even police were reaching the conclusion, always had to be the man abusing a woman. We now know that that's not true. But if there was physical violence took place and there were obvious marks on the woman, then the male was taken into custody. And on some occasions, we would receive calls from the female victim later on that would, where she would be inquiring on when she could get her boyfriend or husband out of jail. And we would almost be incredulous at this because, really that wasn't the point. The point is that you probably want to get away from this guy, but the opposite was true in these cases. And I didn't understand at the time, none of us did at the time, because I didn't know about narcissistic abuse. I didn't know about abusive relationships like I do now. And at the time, I was married to a very beautiful woman. I was married to her for 30 years. And that was a situation that happened in our household. We had arguments, but never anything that went to that level. And so I didn't understand anything about it. Well, you fast forward many years from then, in 2013, my wife died, and within weeks I was targeted by a narcissist who turned out to be a former friend who sent me into a 2-year spiral of hell. And at one point during that relationship, and it was generally about a year, I guess about a year and a half into that, I began to have my aha moment. And it wasn't a hard conclusion for me to reach because I had generally lost everything I had. I was drinking very heavily because I was trying to cope with the situation. As before with my wife, I didn't drink for 20 years. It wasn't something I did, something I decided long ago. I didn't want part of my life, but here I was trying to cope because I didn't know what to do about it. I really didn't know what to do about it because I lost my wife, and generally this was the person after your spouse dies, and you're thinking, where do I go from here? And I lost jobs where I hadn't lost a job any time in my life. I only had 4 jobs in 40 years of working. And it wasn't until a point, as I shared in other videos, where I actually went to a mental health stay for 72-hour stays, called different things. In my state, it's called a Baker Act, because I was just crazy. I was just crazy from the mental and emotional abuse. And I shared with my counselor, who asked me, is this person ever wrong? Whenever you try to bring up something, do they ever admit any wrong in the argument or anything else? And I said, no, they don't. And she just said that, well, basically without seeing them, but I could tell you she sounds like a narcissist. And that's began my journey, my aha moment, because there was finally a label on what was going on. And I read about it and I studied up on it. Now, of course, the narcissist picked me up from that situation the day I was released and basically poo-pooed it off and made it sound, oh, me a narcissist? I couldn't be a narcissist. And again, I wasn't really there yet in it, and it was easier for her to suck me back into it again. But it wasn't soon after that the drinking had accelerated, and here I was sitting in jail on a suicide watch because they found me in my car, and I was basically drinking. I had nowhere to go. I just was out of options as far as I could see at the time. I'm not a suicidal person, but some of you could agree. Some of you have been there. And here I was trying to drink myself to death and was crying out for help is basically what I know what that is now, but there was nobody. Well, the police helped me out because they found me there and they took me into custody, and here I was in custody in a jail where I used to be at, basically I was a dispatcher 20 years before and not in any kind of legal trouble. But I was put on 7-day watch. Nobody could see me. And in that time, there was a psychiatrist there, and it continued my aha moment. Why am I here? How did I get to this point? I would have never been here had it not been for the narcissist. So upon getting out, it wasn't soon after that I got up and left the relationship, and I haven't been back. And I've been steadily growing and getting better and healing from that day on. We all have to reach this moment in our relationship with an abuser. And for some, it's very hard. You know, some of us were not in a single relationship. Some of us are married to this person. Some of us have had children with this person. And I want to say something about that, because I've noticed this, that I don't see enough of this emphasized. The children are not the ones at fault here. If you had children with an abuser, it's not their fault. So in going through these stages, it's important to take their well-being into hand. Children are not part of the relationship you had with the abuser. They are the innocent bystanders. So be careful with that. Be careful with that, because that's, you know, they're not at fault. But you still have to get away from this person. You can't have this person in your life. And so you're going to have to go through legal procedures on my website. I have an article up there that talks about that. Some of the legal issues you may run into trying to divorce an abuser, and especially if you have children. You know, the basic is just to get a lawyer and try to follow legal process. Yeah, it's long and it's hard, and they can make it very hard, you know, pulling all kinds of legal angles. As much as they can screw with you, they will. But you got to think of the destination, not the process. The destination is you're going to finally get rid of this person, finally. And how long it takes is going to be entirely up to the process. But you got to trust the process. The only other option you have is to go back with this person. That's the only option that you got. So, but you still have reached your aha conclusion. And many people don't do that. They end up back with the abuser for whatever reason. Maybe they don't want to go through the process. Maybe they have fears of that, of going through the process and how much it's going to take. You know, some people fear losing the rest of their stuff. You know, we built so many things together. I saw a comment where they, you know, we have a house, we have properties, we have this, we have that. Is that worth it? Is it worth it to be with this person in a relationship? Well, that's totally up to you. For me, nothing is worth being with the abuser again. I gave up all that stuff. What I didn't lose, I gave up. When I left, I left. I left the United States and got married again, and I'm living in Dubai now, and I have none of my possessions from before, and the stuff I even left with the abuser, and left considerable things with them, and then try to retrieve them at all. Let them keep them. Not worth it to me. Not worth it in any fashion, shape, or form for me to go back to that. So how you reach this aha moment and how you move on from that is the key thing. And you know, you may not be there yet. Maybe you're not in the aha moment. But you got to ask yourself, it's the old, does it walk like a duck, talk like a duck, quack like a duck? Then it must be a duck. There's something wrong. You know, the narcissist and other abusers are very good at pointing to you as the problem. That's what the narcissist did with me. See, you can't keep a job. You know, you're drinking too much. Now you're in jail, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, those things were true, but how did I get there? What was the common denominator in all of that? Look, I worked for all those years before and never had a problem. This wasn't something I did my entire life. In fact, I worked on the opposite side of the jail for many years. So the common denominator was this person. And it's not about blame gaming. Like I said, I put an article on my website the other day. It's in my recovery, I'm looking at the things that got me in this situation in the first place, so I never get there again. You know, things in my own psyche that I wasn't aware of. And not bad things necessarily. Codependency is not a bad thing. It's, it's just something, it's like anything else that you got, out of my recovery, I had other diagnoses, post-traumatic stress from my wife's death and from the relationship. That's not a bad, that to me is a badge of what I had to go through to get to where I am now. And I'm much better off now than I ever been before, before I met this narcissist, at least emotionally and mentally, much stronger. And I can go back and look at my wife's death and grieve that properly and put that into proper perspective and live my life the way I should have lived had I not gone through this horrible experience. But some people have trouble getting to there. I don't know if that's you. It could be somebody that you know. But the thing is, at one time or another, you're going to have to come to this conclusion. Or be stuck. It's like anybody says, anybody can come to you and you're sitting in jail and give you the key and swing the door and say walk free, And some people will want to sit in that jail, say, no, that's okay, I've gotten used to be here, thank you very much, I'll just sit here for a while. And you're looking at them and you're looking at yourself and you're going, why? Why would you sit in the jail when the door's open and you've been given the key? You know, my site, other sites on the web, people giving you information or simply giving you swinging the door open and giving you the key. How soon it takes you to get out of there is up to you. But coming to that aha moment, what's your aha moment? This is T.P. McAtam, the author of the book, My Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women. Thanks for listening in. I'll talk to you soon.